Hey everyone, I hope you're having an awesome day. So I have Donna here with me. She is an amazing person. She's going to be a guest expert in one of my retreats coming up. So
Yay.
Donna, I don't want to speak for you because you say it so much better. Will you tell us what you do and what your gifts are?
So thank you, Jennifer. I'm so excited to be here. First off, I just want to say hi to everybody and tell everyone that as we're going through some very stressful times, there are a lot of things that we can be doing to stay healthy. I work in the functional medicine world. Functional medicine is a world of digging into what gets people sick and what keeps people healthy. When I think about functional medicine, I really think about an all-encompassing. We're looking at the physical symptoms, the physical labs. We're looking at the physical appearance of what the heart rate looks like. And then I think of emotional, and what are the emotional things that can cause disease and illness? One of my favorites is diabetes, because diabetes is a sugar problem. And when you think of it from an emotional aspect, you think about, well, where am I not sweet enough in my life? Or did I grow up just feeling like I wasn't sweet enough or special enough? And a lot of times there's emotional components that go along with disease. And then we have the mental part. Mental is like, do you think you're prone to getting a disease? Do you think that because you have diabetes in your family that you're also going to get diabetes? And when I work with people on the mental part of it, I like to use hypnosis, self-hypnosis, and teach patients how to do things with more mental work. I use mantras. I love the Course in Miracles because it has a lot of really cool things in it that every day you do one little mantra and you work on that, and eventually you become those things. So mental takes its own necessary skills and work. And then the spiritual part of who we're being. Are we connected with our spiritual being? Are we connected with our source? When those four things are all together into one, you have a really good sense of health. And so functional medicine is really about balancing out everything. It also is about your relationships. It looks at root causes all the way back to the time before you were even born. So like, what was mom's health like when she was having you as a baby? So for some people, if mom was going through a lot of stress, or mom was an alcoholic, or was going through a divorce, those are stress hormones that are made while you're pregnant, and those stress hormones go into the placenta, into the baby. And so sometimes when people grow up and they have a lot of stress and anxiety in their life, they don't understand that this is something that actually could have come from a long time ago, or a genetic transportation of DNA. So when I'm thinking about functional medicine, it's such a big picture of what could possibly be causing disease. So that's kind of a nutshell of that. What kind of things would you be interested in hearing about what functional medicine does?
I want to hear more about everything you just said. I can't. That all sounds so good. I mean, I think it's such a beautiful, wonderful thing. I've long held the belief that our wellness is more than the physical, and that it is so important to take care of all those realms. But I never thought about it in those emotion ways that you just pointed out, or really thought about, like, what was my mom's health, not just physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually while she was carrying me. And it all makes so much sense.
Yeah. So I had a patient. I just have a quick story. I have a patient that came in, and she was a new patient for me, and she was about 45 years old, and she was coming in with low back pain. And like during the exam and during the assessment, I found out that she'd already been to an orthopedic doctor. She'd already had injections to her back. She already had seen numerous different doctors about the back, had MRIs, like the whole workup, like everything. And so I'm just sitting there thinking, like, she has no deficit in her exam, but yet she has this terrible back pain, which is not a surgical candidate. So the question in my mind was, well, like, what could possibly be causing that kind of back pain? Well, when I think about this whole physical, emotional, mental, spiritual, I started to think about the back as a place of support. The back is our root chakra. Our root chakra is where we feel rooted in life. And with that came the question to her is like, did anything ever happen that was bad in your life? And her answer to me surprised me because I was just like really taken off guard. But she said, yeah, she had been in a car accident at the age of 20, and her boyfriend and her friend were both killed in the car accident with her. And so here we have a person who is having physical symptoms and they're finding nothing on an MRI. So, you know, I tried to talk to her a little bit about this whole spiritual, mental, emotional thing, because they're not finding anything in the physical realm, but she still has that pain. So I think that's a really good example of a story of a patient that is carrying that pain in a space, and she can't let it go, and she needs to be working on things with, you know, seeing a counselor and doing maybe self-hypnosis, maybe doing some Reiki work or energy work, and trying to, you know, clean out those chakras and become more whole as a person. Because I think, like for myself, when I was 20, if that would have happened to me, I can imagine what kind of devastation that would have left me with, that just deep sense of loss and pain.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, no kidding.
Isn't that interesting?
Right? Well, and it's such a great reflection how really so many things can affect our health. You know, as you mentioned, right now we're in a time of stress. We're in this pandemic, and there's a lot of conversations of what we can physically do to keep ourselves safe or to boost our immune system.
Yeah.
But I was wondering, maybe do you want to hit on some other ways you might advocate for people right now tending to their immune system from those other viewpoints, from emotional, mental, spiritual, as well as physical?
Yeah. So physically, people who are worried about the COVID don't have COVID, right? I mean, most of us don't have it. If we do, obviously we're, you know, going to the doctor and being seen for that. Most of it is we are creating this stress within ourselves about a condition that we don't have. And, you know, if you think about fear, false evidence appearing real, that's kind of what this whole thing is doing inside of our body. So our body is sensing this great danger, like something bad is happening. And when it begins to sense that, it begins to make cortisol, and it begins to run up the epinephrine, and it runs up all these hormones inside of our body. And as it does that, our heart rate goes up, our blood pressure goes up, and our body just goes into chaos. You'll find people not sleeping very well. You'll find people tired all the time, and they don't know why. Well, our stress levels are what pushes our body into this place where we're not balanced anymore. So that's one thing. And then I look at it from, you know, like, what are you thinking? Are you thinking you're going to get this virus? Because if you're thinking that, you had talked to me about the laws of attraction, and the laws of attraction say that, you know, what we think about becomes things in our lives. So I try not to think that I'm going to get that. I have I'm not getting that. I'm just not. It's just not on my radar. And I'm doing everything that I'm supposed to do, and you're doing everything you're supposed to do, then you shouldn't get the virus. And then I look from the physical point. I like to check people's labs. I look at A1Cs, which are a measurement of blood sugars. When patients have abnormal glucose levels, they become inflamed. So that's one thing. You can look at SED rates. You can look at homocysteine levels, CRPs. Like, there's a bunch of labs that you can do to find out if you're a person that is more inclined to get this disease because you have these high levels of inflammatory markers. I also like specialty labs. Our specialty labs can run things called CAR, which is a cortisol awakening response, which tells us if you are waking up in the morning and your cortisols in your body are not in coherence. And so it measures the awakening response to make sure that you're having, the cortisol is coming awake when you come awake. If it isn't and it starts to flatten out, then we know that you're having a lot of stress and your cortisol levels are really running high. So those are kind of a few little markers. I also do things like Nutri-Evals. Nutri-Evals are blood work that you can have done. They're usually you have to pay for them. But they're really cool because it gets like every nutrient within your body. So like if you can think of a nutrient or a protein or amino acid, it gets them all. And I did mine, and it was really weird because I ended up having a B12 and a couple other B deficiencies. And I eat a lot of things that have vitamin Bs in them. Well, what I found out was I have this methylation problem. I don't methylate my B B vitamins very well, or folic acid. So I started taking methyl B12 and methylfolic acid, which helps balance it out. It's important because B12 has to do with all the nerve systems in our body. And it's like one of the basic things that can sometimes cause neuropathy and memory issues. So like, it's just things you don't think, I know, you just don't think about these things. But I also have a luxury that I've learned all this stuff in functional medicine. I've learned about all these testing, and then I do them so that I can see if there's something that's going to be really helpful for patients. So it's
Oh gosh, that sounds amazing, because I really fully believe all forms of wellness, of healing, of medicine have their place. But if you're only going to look at one small bit of it, you're missing out on so many other aspects. I'd love to hear you you touch on hypnosis a bit. I'm a huge advocate for it. I had an amazing experience using hypnosis to have my son with a natural birth. I went from being a person that thought I can't handle pain at all, I absolutely can never have a natural birth, to having a phenomenal experience because I was taught how to go into deep relaxation and trust. So do you want to talk a little bit about what you do with this?
I became a hypnotherapist in 2017, and I just love it because the brain, there's different phases of the brain that we go through. I call it BAT because it's easy to remember, but it's beta, alpha, theta, and then we go into delta is where we go to sleep. When we're up and doing beta, we're busy, we're working, we're using our mind. As we begin to relax, we start going down into the alpha level, eventually to the theta, and then delta is all the way asleep. So when people do hypnosis, we're trying to get them into that alpha theta. We don't want them asleep. We want them to be alert enough to hear what we're talking about and to respond to the questions that we have during hypnosis. I've used medical hypnosis for diabetics. I've helped people stop eating cookies in the evening because that was like the one thing he just didn't want to do anymore to correct his sugar. So we did hypnosis on that. I've done hypnosis to help people quit smoking. And then I've done spiritual hypnosis. I'm a Reiki and pranic certified. So I use those two things sometimes with my hypnosis. And how I do that is first I check all the chakras and see if they're open. If they're not, then I pray over the patient. And then we go and we do the hypnosis. So it's really very beautiful. And the experience for the patient is this whole cleansing, and then we're implanting into the subconscious mind the thing that the patient really wants to work on. So it's very effective. And as you said, you had a baby doing hypnosis. And the fact that you did that whole thing with hypnosis and you were able to calm your body down into a level that you could actually be present during the birthing process without screaming and yelling is pretty amazing. Yeah.
Thanks. I feel the same way. I feel like it's such a luxury to be able to say, no, that wasn't the most painful experience of my life. It was the most presence, the most intense, but the most amazing experience of my life. So I have a huge respect for what you're doing. I think that's a huge gift to give people. Oh my gosh, I already have like 4 people in my head. Like, I got to tell so-and-so about what you're doing.
I would like to maybe speak to vitamins a little bit too. I like vitamins, and I do a lot of vitamin supplements. I like a lot of vitamins at the office, particularly because something people don't know is that when they take medications, it can deplete other vitamins. So for patients that are taking metformin, they really should be on a B12 supplement, probably a methyl B12, just for the methylation problems. People who are on like water pills for their blood pressure, they're losing a lot of their electrolytes. So getting on a really good vitamin to help support their electrolyte. I like electrolyte water. I actually just buy a little bottle of electrolyte water, and then I just squeeze the electrolytes into my water once a day. And so that kind of helps replenishing. Sea salt really helps with that too. So people don't realize that some of the things that they're doing for their health also need some of these supplements. So like for asthmatics, I like magnesium, not magnesium oxide, but magnesium. And the reason is because magnesium helps relax the body. You can take it at night, it helps you sleep. And it also relaxes the lungs so that asthmatics have less reaction to lung issues. I know, it's pretty cool.
Now you say it out loud, like, yep, that totally makes sense. That's what magnesium does. Whoa.
I know, but people don't think about that. You know, it's like, oh, I'm asthmatic. Well, yeah, and you're on inhalers. But when things that, like, you really need to make sure that your levels, I mean, the body is such a chemistry. Like, it's all about electrons, positive and negative, how they connect together, how they move through the body. Those electrolytes are our water, which is what's moving through the body. And then when you think about like all the cells have to have energy, our ATP, and ATP needs mitochondrial health. And then you get back into this whole, why don't I have any energy? And people think that energy is just like a simple thing. Well, I don't have energy, or I do, but it's very complicated because it can be anemia. It can be thyroid related. It can be stress related. It can be lack of exercise. It can be sleep issues. It can be sleep apnea. I mean, tons of people have sleep apnea that are not diagnosed. And so the energy, you have to really look at it from this bigger perspective. And you look at a Nutri-Eval. Well, if I was tired all the time and I looked at my Nutri-Eval and I found out I had a B12 deficiency, well, hello, that only makes sense. And our body has a hard time absorbing B12. So like at the office, we do B12 injections because they tend to work a little bit better. But I just do the under the tongue with the methyl. So I know it's like, there's so many things that can be said about functional medicine and people that are doing it.
I think it's wonderful. And I'm really excited to think a little bit more about it, because I'm in the boat where I've had the luxury of being pretty healthy my whole life. And I haven't had to really pay a lot of attention to any of these numbers and any of these things. Like, I have to admit, like, there's a lot like, wait, I've never heard that term before, because I've had the luxury of not doing that. Yeah. But I'd like to hear from you, for people that, are in my boat where we're primarily healthy, but we're maybe not necessarily paying attention. What are some of the things that you want people to do? Like, not necessarily, this is the one thing that'll solve everything, but like, what are things that you want people to be aware of that we might not be aware of?
So everything about your body, as I said, is chemical and electrical. Exercise is probably the number one thing that makes people feel better. Starting an exercise program means that you start with 5 minutes a day. We don't start an exercise program and go out and try to walk 3 or 4 miles and think that we can do that. The fact that you would do that and then hurt tells you that your body cannot do that. And so, starting out with 5 or 10 minutes of exercise, I mean, there's 100 different things that exercise does. There are studies that say exercise is the equivalent of taking Prozac every day. So if you want your own natural antidepressant, go out and exercise. I started exercising in college because I was so stressed out. And I got addicted to it. I got to this place where I have to have that in order for my mood to be stabilized. And then the second thing would be meditating. I owned a practice for the last 7 years and been in the same practice for 18. I started meditating probably 5 to 10 years ago. And I really feel like it's been a lifesaver for me. I met another nurse practitioner who has the same story that I have as far as owning a practice and all the things that happen at a practice that, you wish they didn't, and all the stresses that go along with it. And she has like rheumatoid arthritis. She has fibromyalgia. She's getting ready to close her practice because she's so unhealthy. She just can't do it anymore. And when I started listening to her story and hearing my story through her story, I realized that I got on this wagon of meditation and exercise, eating right, drinking lots of water a long, long, long time ago. And I think had I not, that I would be in the same position that she's in. And I'm so sad for her because, I mean, as nurse practitioners, like, we give everything we got. But we have to, everybody, you, me, everybody has to do things to stay healthy. One thing I would like to say about water too is the waters really help the kidneys. And sometimes people don't drink enough water. They drink a lot of coffee, a lot of sodas and things. Water is what makes our kidneys work. If the kidneys don't get enough water, they squeeze down the blood vessels and make our blood pressure go up. So drinking a lot of water helps prevent high blood pressure. So if you have family history of hypertension, you need to be making sure that you're drinking a lot of water. And I would just make it electrolyte water because it's good for you.
Right.
I know.
Gosh. Donna, this is such good information. I feel like I could easily have you here for like 5 more hours and have so many things. But I know that you've got a really cool group, Journey of You. Do you want to talk about that really quick?
So I left my job in June and trying to figure out what I'm going to do next. I've started a new program called Journey of You. I will be doing group facilitating and groups starting in January or February. Those groups will be for people that want to get healthy, that want to learn about all these different things. I mean, obviously we've touched on a few little things, but it's so much bigger than that. We didn't even talk about the energy work and the healing code and how we can like go through and heal ourselves. So those group memberships are going to be something that people can get into that are really committed to being healthier. And if you don't want to do the group membership, you can just kind of follow me on Journey of You. I also do, private sessions for hypnosis and energy work. I usually like to do kind of all encompassing, get the whole intake of, physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual, because again, it's really hard to do hypnosis just to help one thing without looking at all the parts. So that's the exciting things that I'm doing. If anybody decides they want to do any of those with me, they can just reach me on Facebook or text me.
That's so awesome. Donna, thank you so much for talking about this. I think this is hugely important. I think it's so valuable for people to have access to someone whose knowledge in healthcare and in wellness that has this whole-minded attitude that you say functional medicine does. So thank you so much for doing what you're doing, and also for talking with me about it today. I'm really excited. Yeah. Oh my gosh. So,
well, let's get the world healed, for heaven's sakes.
That sounds wonderful.
Let's not be sick.
And if we can do it in 5 minutes a day, if we can start exercising for 5 minutes a day, if we can start meditating 5 minutes a day, that's so doable.
A lot of things can happen in 5 minutes.
They really can. Well, thank you so much. And thank you in advance for this upcoming New Year's retreat, where you're going to be one of our experts and you're going to talk to us more about this and guide us through some of your things. So I'm really, really excited to have you. And hopefully we'll have you back over here at Fill Up with the Cup more often. Okay.
All righty. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Donna. Take care.